Over the weekend, there was a blog that went viral that I really wanted to bring to everyone's attention because it kind of brings a different perspective to the abortion debate. So oftentimes, the conservative go-to argument is, well, you know, if your mother had aborted you, you wouldn't be here today. You wouldn't be enjoying this great life. So we should ban abortion so everyone has the ability to enjoy their lives. And, you know, even if they're born in terrible, terrible circumstances, they can rise above it and, you know, they can become whatever they want to be. And it's always some inspiring story, right? And it'll always be some person who had a horrible childhood, but they overcame all the obstacles and they're happy that their mother decided not to have an abortion. Well, this woman by the name of Lynn Beisner wrote this blog that is going viral now, and she talks about how she wished her mother had aborted her. Now, obviously, that is an attention-grabbing title to her blog, and I was curious to see what she had to say, but she kind of talks about how her mother was abusive, she was in no position to give birth to her, and even though now she's living a decent life that she's completely happy with, she totally wishes that her mother would have aborted her anyway.
Yeah, I have a hard time sort of wrapping my head around that, as I think many of the readers did. Look, she seems completely genuine in this. I have no real reason to doubt that she means what she says, but it's also questionable whether or not she just wanted the attention, and this is a particularly interesting way to frame it. She says that she has a better life now than she did when she was younger, so I don't understand how she did the calculus that...
Well, let me just say one thing. I don't think she did this for attention because, of course, writing this type of blog will get you a significant amount of negative attention, and I'm sure that she didn't want that. I think it was actually pretty courageous of her to write this kind of blog, but I just want to read you some parts of it that I thought were very powerful. She said, "An abortion would have absolutely been better for my mother. An abortion would have made it more likely that she would finish high school and get a college education. At college in the late 1960s, it seems likely she would have found feminism or psychology or something that would have helped her overcome her childhood trauma and pick better partners." So there she's talking about her mom and how, you know, giving birth when she wasn't ready was horrible for her mother, right? And that was powerful to know that this is like one of the most selfless things you can say. You know, you're living now, you have, you know, a happy life, but you wish that your mother would have made that decision, not just for you, but for herself. She goes on to talk about her childhood. "An abortion would have been best for me because there is no way that my love-starved, trauma-addled mother could have ever put me up for adoption. It was either abortion or raising me herself, and she was in no position to raise a child. She had suffered a traumatic brain injury, witnessed and experienced severe domestic violence, and while she was in grade school, she was raped by a stranger and her mother committed suicide. She was severely depressed and suicidal, had an extremely poor support system, was experiencing an unplanned pregnancy that resulted from coercive sex, and she was so young that her brain was still undeveloped."
It's a pretty harsh story. And look, I should say in regard to what I said earlier about not understanding her point really, or not being able to place myself in the same situation, perhaps I just haven't had a hard enough life. I mean, I'm not from rich parents or anything like that. My parents are divorced, but I certainly didn't have it as bad as she did. Now, I do agree with her point, or what you said earlier about having a problem with the argument that, look, they're all worth something, and, you know, if you can have a baby, there's no reason to abort it. But as so many simplistic arguments do, that falls apart when you take it just one or two steps further. Then why aren't women continuously pregnant, conservative women? If you shouldn't abort children that you've gone one or two steps towards, why aren't you pregnant as soon as your body is physically capable and just keep pumping kids out? And it doesn't matter if you can't feed them enough. It doesn't matter if you can't put clothes on them. It doesn't matter. Just keep having babies, because even if it's a bad life, it's going to be better than nothing.
Right. I totally see what you're saying. And their argument is, well, you know, if you truly feel like you are in a predicament and you are not in the right position to have children, then just don't have sex. And that's always their argument. But it's an unrealistic argument because we're human and people are going to have sex anyway. The best thing you can do...
They're free to follow that.
Right. And look, the best thing you can do, by the way, is educate people to prevent them from getting pregnant, give them access to birth control, which is something that they're against. So it's kind of, I feel like they have this conflicting ideology where they want people to not have abortions. Well, if you don't want people to have abortions, then provide contraception, provide access to comprehensive sex education. Those are the things that are important.
Back to the issue of this woman saying she wishes she had been aborted. I believe her, and here's why. We often would sacrifice ourselves for the benefit of our loved ones. I mean, would I die for my parents? Maybe. Would I die for my children? Definitely. And in her way, she's saying basically she would sacrifice her life for the benefit of her mother's life. And she's saying that if she were aborted, it's not really even being murdered or killed or sacrificing your life much later. It's just something that means she just never would have existed in the first place. It would have given her mother a better opportunity. And her point, which I think is actually very interesting and also kind of a deep and a smart one, is that it's not that the world would be deprived of this great, amazing life that she represents. And that she even says that she's a net negative to the world in terms of how many resources she has to draw upon just to be where she is today. And her very interesting point is that if her mother didn't have her, she might have had someone better at a better time that's better for everyone involved later. So that's a really interesting comment, because just because you abort a baby doesn't mean that this world is necessarily one less life, missing from it. You can have another baby later when it's better for everyone involved.
It's about planning your life, and it's about making the right decisions when it comes to having a baby. And you want to give women the opportunity to make that decision for themselves.